Hey, it is Zennial Gamer back with some Siege tournament content for you guys. That's right, yeah, it's about a month late, but we are back with our round 4 Apocalypse versus Malicious. This is my round 4 against Malicious Siege tournament. Now, for this first fight right here, guys, I screwed up the recording and I don't have the actual recording. However, you are going to see this exact same comp done one more time later in the video, so we'll talk about it there, but you can see the win to start off. Now, we're going to move into our second fight. This is going to be a Momo, Molly, and Ken, and we brought in our Fang, Aaliyah, and Nana. Now, this is pre-Nana nerf. Nana is noticeably weaker in Siege since the nerf, but this was pre-Nana nerf. So the basic concept of this team, it's pretty straightforward. We're just trying to bruiser it out. And the Aaliyah Fang the Aaliyah Fang comp is really, really good. Now, a lot of people will use Aaliyah Fang Velajul, which I think is also another really strong one. I liked Nana in this comp before the nerf because it gave you dirt protection. Like, if the enemy just went proc wild, Nana would keep you in the fight, because really, as soon as you get the Aaliyah stacked on her skill 4, and then you get the Fang up with some immunity and some buffs, Aaliyah Fang can tomb on most defenses. The key is going to be surviving that initial push, and that's where the Nana helps out a lot, where the Velajul may not help as much. Like, if the Fang drops on turn 1, you've pretty much lost, because the Aaliyah Velajul is not going to win fights the way Aaliyah Fang will. Now, with that said, again, since the Nana nerf, it's a little bit iffier. I still probably prefer the Nana in this comp, but I wouldn't bring this comp in against as many defenses. Now, while these fights are playing in the background, I want to talk a little bit. I get a lot of questions about what it was like in last season. For those of you who are regulars on the channel, a lot of you know last season was my first season in a tourney level guild. And a lot of people have asked me what it's like. Now, before I talk about that, let's just, we've got another fight coming in the background here. So again, it's going to be the Molly Ken Momo. We're using pretty much the same concept here, except I only have one Aaliyah, so we went with the Riley this time. The Riley is stronger and weaker at the same time. Obviously, without the defense buff, my Fang doesn't do quite as much damage. However, the Riley provides cleansing that the Aaliyah does not provide, provides a little bit more immediate sustain, where the Aaliyah is a little bit slower. So the two comps, definitely stronger with Aaliyah, but the two comps are both pretty good. Now, as far as what it was like my first season in a tourney level Siege, it was intense, guys. It was intense. The first week was probably my worst week ever in Siege. I was not prepared. I didn't realize what I needed to do in order to get prepared, and the first two sieges were two of my worst sieges ever. Now, from there, that first week, at the end of that first week, I bought an FRR ticket. I spent like more than 20 hours doing a full account rebuild. I 6-starred 60 monsters, 60 plus monsters, and I did manage to go, it was like 94% win rate for the rest of the season. In the tourney overall, I only did 2 tourney videos, but I went 39-1 in the tourney. The one loss was in round 1. It was a rushed comp after we had kind of already mapped. For the rounds that mattered, I did pretty well. Now, and the other one is going to be talking about what it takes to prepare for Siege at the tourney level. Now, I don't know. I know a lot of you guys who watch my Siege videos at least are probably in G3 guilds or G2 guilds thinking about making the move up. So that particular video, keep an eye out for it. It was a learning experience for me. More than anything else, I think the single biggest thing for me to get used to tourney level Siege was learning how to prepare, because it's more about being ready for the next siege than it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very important that you bring the right comps. It's very important that you understand the mechanics, the gameplay within the fights. When you're talking about looking for 92, 93, 94% win rate over the entire season, there's very little margin for error. Every bad comp you bring for the entire season has a big outsized impact on your win rate. And so a big part of it is going to be making sure that you're just prepared for what the next siege will be. So those are 2 of the videos that are coming up. I think they're both going to be really fun videos. One's more educational. One's a video I would just love to see some spotlight content getting shown, you know, so some of these ideas getting discussed. Now, in the meantime, this fight behind us is taking forever, so we are going to jump forward a little bit. Now, next up, we've got, this was the 4-star defense that Mally ran against us, which was Iona, Suki, and Beta. So for this comp, we basically just brought in double wind and then the Lulu with the Triana giving me some additional protection on the Roid. The Roid is there for control. This is going to be a slower fight, so I'm going to jump forward just a little bit, show you guys kind of the gameplay, but I definitely took my time on this fight. I think we may have also been waiting to take a base. Now you can see what I did here was just target the Suki first. Even though the Beta can revive the Suki, the key to this team is just basically making sure that you keep immunity up so that you don't let the Iona get, get going crazy. But mostly, the key to this team is making sure you don't get defense broken. So you control the Suki with the provokes, you kill the Suki as quickly as you can, and then when the Beta revives him, you go ahead and just kill him right back out again. So you can see Iona is going to be targeting the Lulu. The Lulu should be able to tank because we have split tanks right here. And when I say split tanks, obviously the Suki would target the Lulu, but we are keeping the Suki CC'd as much as we can with the Roy. Suki doing his AoE right there, but we've got 3 very tanky units, and then we'll keep skipping forward here a little bit. At this point, the S1 sleep, you see, doesn't matter. We went ahead and took the kill. And then this is going to be a very long, very slow fight, so we are going to jump forward a little bit. I think, actually, can I play this faster? No, I can't play this faster on the player, so we'll just keep jumping forward. After we target the Suki, we target the Beta. We eventually get the Beta out, and then we take down the Iona. And obviously, the first time you take down the Iona, you want to make sure you have immunity up if you can. Now, this next fight is going to be the same one that you guys saw at the start of the video. So this is going to be Kinky, Odin, and Wusa. The counter for this is Carcano, Cha-Cha, and Triana. Now, in this counter, the Carcano is built in a heavy crit damage build. You want to get him to about 20 to 24,000 K. Not K, that would be millions. You want to get him to about 20 to 24k HP to make sure that he can take some Wusa S2s. The Cha-Cha here is going to be built on Triple Revenge, 205 tick, preferably with some accuracy so that it can strip the Kinky if the Kinky's max res and take the Kinky's attack. And then the Triana in this particular team, you're going to be using a super tank Triana. So you're looking for 45, 50k HP. And the reason for that is because that Odin, obviously the Odin can steal buffs. He can get, he can start with 2 buffs and he gets 2 more with the Wusa. So if he gets 1 buff stolen from you, he gets to his 5. If he targets the Triana, he's not going to have an attack buff. So as long as you make sure that the Triana can take like an AoE from the Kinky, because the Kinky's going to be targeting the Cha-Cha most of the time, but he will AoE. So as long as the Triana can take 1 or 2 AoEs from the Kinky plus like a 35k, 38k hit from Odin and not die, this team's going to be 100%. So you use a super tank Triana, you have just a high crit damage Carcano, and then you have that triple revenge Cha-Cha, and you can just kind of run this all day long. Now, I could have gone into the Wusa. Now, you probably want to target the Wusa right here after you target the Odin. In this case, I went for the Kinky first. I do believe that the counter works both ways, but I still would probably target the Wusa because the Kinky is locked down. So this was actually not played well on my part. Again, I do think it works both ways, but the better play would have been to go into the Wusa right here. And the reason, obviously, that I'm going for the Kinky is because I have attribute disadvantage with the Carcano. But however, by going into the Wusa here, I'm not taking those revenge defense breaks from the Kinky. I'm making sure that all of my attribute manipulation and control stays in place. And even though the fight's going to take potentially a little bit longer going into the Wusa, it just winds up being safer overall. Especially because the Wusa is the only thing hitting the Carcano, and the Carcano is the only thing I have doing damage. Alright, so for the next one, guys, it's Tourney. You're only gonna see 2 defenses. That's it. You're gonna see, actually, I think you might see 3 defenses, but you're basically only gonna see, it's Tourney, you're only gonna see a couple defenses. And you're gonna see mostly the same counters because we're working with a lot of dudes, right? So this is the Iona Beta Kinky, and we ran back with the Triana, Roid, and Lulu, so we don't need to play this entire thing out. This is a long fight. We can just jump forward here, and you will see that we got the win. This was the exact same strategy as the first time I used it. Kill the Suki, kill him again when he gets revived, take out the Beta, and then finish with the Iona. Alright, next up, guys, we got Iona Beta Suki. Now, this one right here is actually interesting. So, At the start of Tourney, we were talking about what we would use to counter this, and one of the thoughts was double rock Icarus. And the concern here is that this team has a loss condition, which is that the beta gets a strip, and if the beta strips into the Trasar or strips into the Icarus, the Suki can follow up with a defense break. And if the Suki then sets up the Ionu, again, in one of the dark units, the Ionu will follow the defense break. There's an early snipe. A lot of things have to go wrong, but that loss condition does exist. It can happen. So we tested this quite a bit. And we found that it would lose about 1 in 10. So, knowing that there's a loss condition, why did I take this? Because we needed a base quickly. We had to take the base at that point. And this was the only team that I could rush in with, and I was the one who had attacks available, so we took a risk. This was a 90. It was probably 90+%, but definitely not 100% counter going with the double rock there. But it allowed us to take that base quickly without having to take the time to move runes around and set up another counter. Okay, so now we've got a Momo, Ken, and Molly. So for this one, we went kind of similar concepts to my first two counters. We're bringing in Fang with defense buff. This time we're bringing in the Perna. So the Perna is going to be, for one thing, able to do big damage into the Momo. But the Perna is also providing that extra sustain. Since I'm using the Amelia that doesn't provide a lot of sustain, and the Fang sustain is kind of limited, Perna gives me that nice balance of additional damage and sustain. The other nice thing here too is that if the Perna does wind up taking some hits, we get that extra life, of course. You can see this one goes really smoothly. The Momo goes down quickly. No crazy procs or anything by the enemy side. And then in this case, I don't think I would have targeted the Molly first there. I think I would have gone for the Ken, but because we had the revenge defense break, it made sense. And then the Ken just decided to commit suicide anyway. And so there you go. This one was a very smooth fight. We'll move on to the next. Okay, so next up we've got the Nana. Now this, I will say, this is probably my worst, if I remember correctly, this was my worst counter in the Mali Siege. So this is, we've got Nora Sagar, which I don't think I've ever seen this defense before. So a lot of times Juno is very commonly used against the Nora, especially if you need sustain right there. I could have put the Juno into the Nora, pulled a dot, and given my team some extra sustain. The Juno-Lala combination in particular is very commonly used because Lala is going to give the cleanse a lot of sustain. It's a slower team. You're relying basically on the Juno artifact damage. And then here we're using the Cade, and the Cade is kind of unnecessary. There's a lot of different units that you could use here. The Cade is being used because the Sagar will target Cade, and if Sagar lands a defense break, then everything will target Cade, but Cade doesn't actually get defense broken. So he's just here to basically do some AI control, but I think that there's probably better units that could have been used in this spot. The Cade does also give you some, he gives you the defense break here, which is really nice. It does help speed the fight up a little bit. And then he also has some turn 1 stuns, but it's just risky. To bring in Cade in a long fight like this, things can go wrong at some point. One of the issues here is the Juno's taking a lot of damage, and the Cade is not really doing enough in support. So you would rather have a unit that can tank and either do some damage there or reduce the damage that you're taking elsewhere, something that gives you maybe a little bit better support, something like that. Now the team itself, I mean, it was never really in danger of losing, but it does get kind of scary when you see the Juno's HP getting destroyed that quickly. Now, next up, we have got another Momo Ken Molly, shocker. And we did bring another Fang, that's right, guys. So this time we went with Fang, Riley, and Julienne. The Julienne here actually fit really nicely into this team. And obviously Julienne can't die. There's no dots on the enemy side, or can die, but can't die until everything else is dead, basically. But it's the same concept here. We're coming in with the Fang, we're coming in with the Riley, so we've got the sustain, we've got the high damage and the counters from the Fang to counter the Ken. But in this case now, we've also got that really high damage output from Julienne. So this was probably the strongest of the counters I used against this defense. And one of the reasons I didn't use it first is because Julienne is such a versatile monster. I wanted to save him for a later fight when the other counters were The other counters were all still available and still very viable. But now as we're getting later in the siege and this was the best fit, we went ahead and used the Juliet. So you can see we won this one, and we're going to move on to the end of this fight. And as we finish off this fight, I'd like to draw your attention above, ladies and gentlemen. That is a 10-0 against Mally, round 4 tourney. So there you go, guys. That was my round 4 siege tourney. Now, I know this video was like a month late, guys. Again, for those of you who are regulars to the channel, you know right after siege tourney ended, I went on vacation. I went to Cancun for 2 weeks. I came back from Cancun. I actually got a case of COVID, so I haven't done any videos for the past 2 weeks. We are gonna have a few videos out now. So I talked earlier about the couple of other siege videos that are coming out. If you guys enjoy this type of content, please remember to go ahead and smash the like button. Make sure if you're not subscribed to the channel, you consider subscribing. It's gonna help motivate me to continue putting out more content, and next time maybe not even be a month late. I don't know. All right, guys, on that note, as always, I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.